We are right now in the information gathering mode, taking input from the public. We've had a series of meetings. We were before you here before Rachel Hyde and my staff was here last month. We've had meetings at the Shipshape Center in September. We're having, in essence, another, frankly, tomorrow night, we're going to have an open house again at the Shipshape Center. So we're trying to reach out to the community, talk to the business community, talk to the residents, and hear from them in terms of their thoughts on anything that we're proposing to date, and get their thoughts on everything that they feel like must be incorporated as part of the program. So I want to go through now and talk about what we've heard. So making sure what we've heard here is, hey, provide for business employers, the residents here. It's expensive to live here. I can't afford going ahead and paying a toll once, twice, 3 times a day. So we're hearing that loud and clear. Also, thought process that, hey, there's going to be a lot of tourists here coming in the future, and that they need to pay their fair share too. I do want to remind folks that the original TITIP plan, that frankly I did not develop, it actually only called for tolling of the residents on the island. So the tolling policy that we did pass in 2016 basically said, no, we need to toll, in essence, everybody coming to and from the island, including residents in that regard. Now I want to get into, in essence, the meat of what I'm here to state today. And after talking to the residents and hearing from them, and we want to continue to hear, we have a couple options here. In talking to our board, they've always indicated to us, is there a way for there not to be a toll during the midday? That is one of the options. It's shown as option 2 here. But option 1, which is really the one that we are really starting to rally around and have a lot of, to date, had discussions, is a monthly credit or stipend of $250 to $300 for every household here on the island. That would help offset the cost, the additional costs that they might incur. What's important to note is that we're proposing that it end in after a 5-year period. Because after 5 years, you reach a critical mass of about 2,000 units. You really have to go ahead now and in order to meet the transit mode, increase the transit service at that time, have full ferry service, etc. And so that's one major component of option 1. The second component is frankly dealing with the business community. And we have a lot more to work to do, frankly, in terms of talking to the business community, understanding how many businesses will be here in the future, etc. So we've got work to do, but we understand that it's a hardship in that regard. So we're looking at some type of a monthly credit or stipend for qualifying current businesses. We want to work with the Treasure Island Development Authority staff to better understand that, have more outreach with the business community. But also, too, what's also clear and important to understand is that 5-year mark. Because at that 5-year mark, you really get to a point where you need to have a financially sustainable program. And if we were to continue it on, we really have problems in that regard in terms of financial sustainability. I want to go over now and talk about some of the other components of the program that, based on some of the feedback we've received, we're basically also proposing to reduce the weekday off-peak from $2 to $1. We also want to better incentivize and give an additional toll credit earned for every 10 one-way transit trips. Last month, or at least part of the original proposal, we had it for every 20. So that's in that regard, it's a 100% increase as it relates to how many trips, 10 one-way trips versus 20 in terms of an additional toll credit. The other important item here on this slide is on the weekends we're proposing actually instead of a $1 toll, a $2 toll, and some increased hours for tolling on the weekends. I do want to talk about the $250 to $300 amount. When you do the math, if you were traveling peak period, that would equate to 2 round-trip tolls per household every weekday. So I just want to put in terms of perspective for you to understand that. That's what that stipend would be able to, in essence, pay for. So in that regard, it could be also too in a 2-person household and both persons are working, they each would get a round trip free. Okay, here we go. Just a graphic in that regard also, for you to understand, is that money would be available to pay the toll, to purchase the transit access pass that we've been talking about here for the last almost year or so, with the difference, frankly, going in the pocket there. We think this is an incentive, in essence, for folks in terms of behavior, because the toll is significantly less during the off-peak and on the weekends. The resident business credits, we still would have a discounted transit pass available to current and future VMR residents. Working towards getting availability to workers through an employer program. We still have to work out the details of that. As I mentioned before, the one toll credit for 10 one-way transit trips. What you have in front of you there is the similar table that we showed you a month ago, but in highlight, what you have highlighted there in orange are the different, in essence, proposed toll to be paid depending on whether or not it's peak, off-peak, or weekend toll. So we're still proposing the $3.50 peak toll, and I'm concentrating on the fast track column there, assuming that everyone will get a fast track, which we're hoping, and we'll try to incentivize everybody to do that. We were down recently in LA Metro looking at some of their tolling facilities, and they have a nice program there. And in terms of business rules, I think we can help everybody make sure that they get a fast track in that regard without any financial problem in having to pay that. So we think that's something that we can incorporate into the program here. There is a cost to all this. And this may be a little confusing, I apologize, but ultimately the $250 to $300 a month stipend equates to about $3 million a year for 5 years, or $15 million. If you were to pay for that by increasing the toll, you would increase it to a higher dollar amount, but that's not what we're proposing. We're still proposing what was on the chart on the previous slide. What we want to do, and so what we're going to do, what this translates to is a short-term cash flow problem in those first early years. We think we can work with the development team to look at other ways of financing, to bring additional money to the table to help offset that short-term cash flow problem. So there's a lot of work to be done in that regard over the next couple of years, but we think it's not insurmountable.